Will the Justice Department prosecute anybody for Spygate? Better now than later. Here's why. Hello, this is Robert Romano, Vice President of Public Policy with Americans for Limited Government, dailytorch.com. Hit that subscribe button. Today we're going to be talking about U.S. Attorney John Durham and Attorney General William Barr's investigation into the Obama-Biden administration, Justice Department, and intelligence agencies spying on the Trump campaign, the opposition party, in an election year under false allegations that President Trump, and his campaign were Russian agents, that they tapped the DNC and John Podesta emails and put them onto WikiLeaks, coordinating with Moscow. It turns out none of it was true. It was debunked by none other than Special Counsel Robert Mueller, but not for 3 years. And it's remarkable that we got to the point where it did, but it basically engulfed the entire Trump administration's first term in office, and maybe the only term. Now, Senator Chuck Grassley, Republican out of Iowa, he's, I think, rightly concerned that there may be no prosecutions for this false spying and investigation until after the election, if at all. Quote, at Real Donald Trump, hashtag common sense. If no prosecutions till after elections, sad. Just think, Flynn, Mueller, impeachment, the deep state is so deep that people get away with political crimes. Durham should be producing some fruit of his labor. And here at Americans for Limited Government, we agree with that. We believe that we do need something from the Justice Department so that the interest of justice can be served in this capacity. I think we have a two-tier justice system, and it's going to get out of control if we can't, I think, rein it in a little bit. So Grassley's frustration is well placed. The Obama administration launched its investigation into the Trump campaign in 2016 and then secretly carried that investigation over into the Trump administration after the president was elected. Within months, Special Counsel Robert Mueller was appointed, but it wouldn't be until March of 2019 that we even got to see his findings on Russian interference, as well as supposed Trump administration or then campaign involvement with that undertaking. And it turned out that none of it was true. In 2019, Mueller and his team reported, quote, the investigation did not establish that members of the Trump campaign conspired or coordinated with the Russian government in its election interference activities, and, quote, the evidence does not establish that the president was involved in an underlying crime related to Russian election interference. Afterward, it would take the Justice Department Inspector General Michael Horowitz 6 more months to complete a review of the FISA warrants that had predicated the investigation into Carter Page as well as the Trump campaign. And those warrants started to be obtained in October of 2016. But key elements were left out of those FISA applications, and also the Mueller report. Unbelievable bombshells, as a matter of fact, including the fact that primary source of Christopher Steele, former British spy that was hired by the DNC in the Hillary Clinton campaign to spy on the Trump campaign, the primary source was not questioned until January of 2017 after the dossier. This basically bogus allegations that President Trump and his campaign were Russian agents, Carter Page, Paul Manafort, they were the ones conspiring and coordinating with the Russian government to hack the DNC and Podesta emails. It wasn't until after BuzzFeed published this in January of 2017 that the FBI said, maybe we should investigate the sources, because you'll recall Michael Cohen, former Trump attorney, he said, the Steele dossier says I was in Prague meeting with Russian agents. Here's a problem. I've never been to Prague. I've never been to the Czech Republic, and my passport proves it. Only then did apparently the FBI say, hey, maybe this isn't true. Maybe we need to investigate what's going on with the Steele dossier and all of these allegations. Which would turn out to be completely false. Again, the FBI under the Horowitz report now, then you have to go back because this wasn't included in the Mueller report. The FBI interviews Steele's primary source, and according to the Inspector General report, quote, the primary subsource made statements during his or her January 2017 FBI interview that were inconsistent with multiple sections of the Steele reports, including some that were relied upon in the FISA applications. Among other things, regarding the allegations attributed to Person 1, the primary subsource's account of these communications, if true, was not consistent with and in fact contradicted the allegations allegations of a, quote, well-developed conspiracy of cooperation between them and Russian leadership. This was managed on the Trump side by the Republican candidate's campaign manager, Paul Manafort, who was using foreign policy advisor Carter Page as and others as intermediaries. The two sides had a mutual interest in defeating Hillary Clinton, but none of it was true. And we know that now from the Horowitz report as well as the Mueller report. So the Justice Department has gone back. They've done their own gumshoe investigation, and they've discovered that this was a false investigation. And the FBI knew, here's the other bombshell, that Carter Page was a CIA agent reporting on Russians and going back years. But they knew that in August of 2016, prior to getting the FISA warrants to spy on the Trump campaign, they knew that Carter Page was working for the U.S. government and Central Intelligence Agency, and they failed to report this to the FISA court, such that you would have never had a FISA warrant. There wouldn't have been an investigation if they hadn't, concealed this fact, which is just a bombshell. And you have to get to the Horowitz report 6 months after the Mueller report just to find out about it. And it's just unbelievable. I mean, maybe that's why the Mueller team didn't believe that there was a well-developed conspiracy. Now, former Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, he says, quote, he would not have renewed the FISA warrants against Carter Page and the Trump campaign and then administration in 2017 had he known then what he known now. Astonishingly, again, none of these revelations were included in the Mueller report, nor did they cause Mueller to conclude or dismiss his investigation much sooner. And it is Mueller's delay that today makes investigation and potential prosecutions now exceedingly problematic, especially now that we are into the heart of the 2020 election season. If prosecutions happen now, they'll be viewed politically, but they're going to be viewed politically anyway. So, and maybe that's why we need to, get on with it. If there's a report or prosecutions, let's just get it over with and get it started so that the American people at least can find out what happened. And no matter when Barr and Durham bring any charges or produce a report, they will be viewed politically, just as the Horowitz report was viewed politically, just as Attorney General Barr releasing the Mueller report and issuing a statement prior to its full disclosure of what some of the key findings were. That was viewed as being political. So it's going to be viewed politically or not. You're not going to convince the mainstream media that they were wrong about all of their reporting related to Trump and Russia and their conspiracy theories, or the FBI and their conspiracy theories about Trump. None of it's going to persuade anybody, except perhaps for the American people, that there was something really fishy going on here with the Obama-Biden administration. And it's no matter what, it's going to be viewed politically. So let's just do our jobs, right, and get this information out there. If for nothing else, the historical record. And by the way, if you wait until after the election, if Trump loses, and then you start doing prosecutions, you're basically going to be doing the same thing the Obama administration Justice Department did, which was leave a ongoing national security investigation into ostensible political opponents open, and then leaving it up to the next administration, which would be the Biden administration, to investigate it and to see it through to completion. Now, one presumes former Vice President Joe Biden he's already discounted such an investigation. He's already called for William Barr to resign.
Talking about the letter signed by more than 2,000 former Justice Department officials of both political parties calling on Attorney General Barr to resign. Do you join their calls for his resignation?
Absolutely, positively. This has been the greatest abuse of power I have ever seen.
The greatest abuse of power that he's ever seen. Actually, the greatest abuse of power he probably ever saw was in the Oval Office on January 5th, 2017, was when he was in the room with Barack Obama, James Comey, Sally Yates, and they were discussing, and Susan Rice, discussing how they were going to continue spying on Michael Flynn, the incoming National Security Advisor, and carry over this investigation into the Trump campaign, transition into the Trump administration, and not tell anyone about it, and withhold information about it, and just let it go on, and probably leak it all to the news media so that they could start to sow a narrative politically about what President Trump and who he was, and they had this false narrative that he was a Russian agent. It's just ridiculous that this sort of coup could go on where the outgoing administration says, yeah, we're going to spy and investigate on the incoming administration. essentially creating two administrations of justice, two executive branches, a constitutional crisis, the likes of which has never been seen in this republic, and yet we just lived through it for the past 3 years. And it could even go on if Biden wins. This sort of thing can continue going on with these false allegations. I think the American people were already losing faith in the justice system, even when the Justice Department opts to dismiss the case against former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn and says, yeah, we found exculpatory evidence. Here you go, Judge. They get the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals to say, yes, Judge Emmett Sullivan, you must dismiss this case. Emmett Sullivan, he just drags his heels. Maybe he'd like to continue this thing going on until a potential Biden administration so that they can resurrect it. It's like we're never going to get any justice or any answers about what really happened in 2016. And then, oh, by the way, there was a lot of pressure on the Trump administration to allow the Justice Department and then Mueller to fully investigate Russian election interference and whatever else they were investigating. It turns out they were investigating the president. Would the same thing really happen in a Biden administration? Would they appoint a special prosecutor to look into the deeds of the Obama administration in 2016? I don't think so. That would make Biden look bad. So there's a lot of perverse incentives, I think, for Biden, if he wins, not to investigate this. And there's, bad incentives not to release anything until after the election, I think, on the Justice Department, because they do not want to be perceived politically. But I think that ship has already sailed, and we need answers more than we need, to have appearances, I think, because that too is political. If you're going to withhold information from the American people until after the election, that's political. That could help out. That could be perceived as helping out Joe Biden if it makes him look bad, or it could be perceived as helping out President Trump if, in fact, the Obama administration and Biden, their investigation into the Trump campaign was well predicated. I don't think it was well predicated. I don't think William Barr thinks it was well predicated. I don't think John Durham thinks it was well predicated. I think they'd like to throw the book at these guys, but maybe they're afraid about what the political consequences are going to be. But, this is an election season, and we don't stop administering justice just because of politics. I think that's the real key there. We have a two-tier justice system right now, plain as day. One set of rules for Republicans, complete with kangaroo courts and false allegations and false charges, and another set of rules for Democrats who are basically untouchable. We elect presidents to faithfully execute the laws, and it can be said that President Trump did not really have the chance to hold these bad actors to account, and now he may never get that chance. This is a level of corruption that must never be allowed again, and the American people have a right to know what happened in 2016, to know it before they vote, precisely because it could prove determinative in the outcome politically. Was the investigation into Trump by Obama and Biden well predicated or not? Yes or no? And give us this information before the election. If nothing else, Durham should produce a report akin to the Mueller report that lays out the facts of what has been discovered based upon grand jury testimony and other documents that have been obtained. There's a possibility now that the surveillance laws, FISA, was not even violated by what took place here, in which case we need to know that now so we can have a debate on the presidential stage about reforming FISA, so that congressional candidates can talk about the need to reform FISA, because it didn't even prohibit the illegal or what should have been illegal spying against the Trump campaign in 2016. We have I think this is a terrible situation to be in right now, and I feel bad for Barr and Durham, like, oh, this is all coming out in an election year, but the heck with it, just put it out there and let justice be done though the heavens fall. I think that's really where we are right now. We need to know what happened here, and voters need to know why and how the Obama-Biden administration was spying on its political opponents, the opposition party, the Trump campaign, in an election year on charges that they were foreign agents that turned out to be fake. And then why the investigation was secretly carried over into the Trump administration afterwards under the most specious of grounds. And the targeting of Michael Flynn is a perfect example of that. They had the transcripts of the phone call with Ambassador Kislyak, where basically Michael Flynn's saying, there's these sanctions, they're expelling diplomats, only respond reciprocally to the expulsion of the diplomats. And we don't want to have an escalation right now. Let's see if we can get this situation under control and protect national security, so that we don't have escalation between U.S. and Russia, which have thousands of nuclear weapons pointed at one another. Wouldn't that be bad? So basically, Michael Flynn was protecting U.S. national security, and they used that conversation during transition to say that Michael Flynn is a traitor and President Trump is a traitor, and we need to go after them. We need to keep this investigation. We need to withhold information from the Trump administration about Russia. I think they've done, again, irreparable harm here, and I'll leave you with the close. This is not merely a sad state of affairs, as Senator Grassley stated. This is a mortal danger to our constitutional republic and the two-party system, and appears to be the tip of the spear in a bid for one-party rule and to deny the American people their choice in 2016 and perhaps in 2020 too. The peaceful transfer of power in 2016, 2017 was anything but. If there is no accountability now, these false charges against political opponents will happen again, only it will be even worse next time. That's the commentary. This is Robert Romano, Vice President of Public Policy with Americans for Limited Government, dailytorch.com. Hit that subscribe button, ring the bell for notifications, and have a good day.